there was one word to describe Guatemala, it would be colorful. The buildings, the clothing, the crafts, the traditions, the people. The native people of Guatemala are called Mayans. The first Mayan settlements were founded before the time of Christ. The Maya developed early farming innovations that made their crops abundant, like tiered farming. They were also advanced in math, architecture, and astronomy, and created detailed calendar systems. Unfortunately, their good times would not last. By the 9th century, the Mayan civilization started to decline because of politics, overfarming, drought, and internal war. But even though the population declined, their traditions, culture, and beliefs stay strong to this day. In the 1500s, other people moved into their land and kind of forced the Mayans to become Catholic. So today, the religion is Catholic, but with a colorful mix of rituals. We flew into Guatemala City, and after some car rental issues, went straight to Antigua. So let's get to the first order of business, money. When you go to a foreign country, you have to exchange money into their currency. Guatemala uses quetzales, not dollars. For every American dollar, we got 7.5 quetzales. It was hard to get used to. You had to calculate every time you wanted to buy something. We stayed most of the time in Antigua, the first capital of Guatemala. The arch you see here is one of the most famous landmarks in Antigua. It is called the Arco de Santa Catalina. When it was built, there was a convent in the buildings on either side of the street dating back to 1613. The nuns used it to go from building to building without running into anyone. It fell in an earthquake in 1773, but was rebuilt later. This is Iglesia de la Merced. It is a gorgeous church that was once built in the mid-1500s, but also demolished from an earthquake. This is one of the few that was completely restored.
On Easter Sunday, we went to Mass at the Cathedral de Santiago in the main square. Yes, it was in Spanish. This church dates back into the 1500s. It was demolished during the earthquake of 1773 and rebuilt later.
There are many ruins in Antigua because they suffered devastating earthquakes. Around every corner is a battered building, or even a wall that looks like it just survived a war. Even though the 36-year Civil War ended in 1996, you still see many armed policemen and military on foot protecting the streets. All over Antigua, you see really old walls, but you never know what's behind them. There's some really impressive homes and also some very modest ones. There's not any big signs like you see here. All the store signs are very small and discreet. It's definitely a tourist town, and the locals from surrounding villages come every day to sell their handmade goods to travelers. We saw many kids our age selling things with shining shoes to help provide for their families. They're not home playing video games, playing baseball tournaments, or swimming in their pool. Mothers not only carry loads on their heads, but many have a baby strapped to their back as well. They're not at home with a babysitter. These people are tough. All of these locals ride what's called the chicken bus. They're called that because you may end up sitting next to someone carrying a chicken. But Mom and Dad call them death traps because they drive really, really crazy and fast. But this is how locals get from village to village because most of these families don't have cars. Every time we saw one, Dad would shout,
Radio Fiesta!
The tuk-tuks are different. They're fun. We rode one a couple times. Basically, they're like a covered three-wheeler. But because all of the streets are cobblestone, it makes for a bumpy ride. The drivers weave in and out of traffic. Mom called Antigua an archaic Manhattan because everyone drives crazy and you have to be really careful crossing the street. The main park had some great big fountains and cool-shaped trees. All the streets are cobblestone, and the sidewalks are narrow with lots of windows jutting out. You have to be really careful not to run into them. But one day we were walking and looked back. AJ was holding his forehead. Ouch! So I decided to film a reenactment. There is a large variety of food, but we ate a lot of pizza because Mom and Dad knew we would eat it. Like this Italian pizza on a Chinese plate in Guatemala. You have to be careful not to eat anything raw that's rinsed in the water, like tomatoes or lettuce. Not that I would eat any of that anyway. And you can't drink the water or you could get sick from the bacteria that's in the water there. Even the ice because it can melt in your drink. So we got to drink a lot of soda. One night, our dinner was a disaster, so Mom found a place we'd like. Antigua even has its own cross mountain called Cerro de la Cruz, which means Hill of the Cross. We hiked up a long curvy stairway to a big cross that overlooks Antigua. I can't even imagine how long it took them to carry up all that cement up there to build those steps.
Semana Santa means Easter week in Spanish. This is the main reason we came this time of year. My dad was here 22 years ago to photograph the Easter celebrations. During this time, there were a bunch of special processions in Antigua, where hundreds of volunteers carried really heavy altars called endas, made of wood, some weighed over a ton. These altars have statues on them dating back to the 1700s that symbolize different parts of Easter week. The processions wind through the streets of Antigua and lasted for hours. They walked very, very slow. On Good Friday, it was really crowded, so it was hard to get a good view, but we managed to catch a few processions where we sat right on the curb. They've been doing these ceremonies for over 500 years. The other amazing part of the processions is the carpets called alfombras. Locals spend hours creating these beautiful carpets right in the middle of the streets. They are made out of colored sawdust, grass, and flowers. Some of them are incredibly detailed, as you can see here. They begin by putting a base of regular sawdust to fill in the cracks of the cobblestone. Then they put down the base color with a strainer type box. They use these templates to put down the patterns and scoop the colored sawdust with spoons or their hands. Some of them are so wide that they have to use a miniature scaffolding to get to the mill. While they are building them and after, they spray it with mist of water to sort of pack it down and make sure the sawdust doesn't blow away. Then get this, after all of that work, the processions carrying those huge altars walk right over them. Right after the processions comes a work crew that cleans up all the sawdust, and then that night, they start building them all over again. Amazing!